You said that it was really in 2020 that you kind of felt it the most because, in fact, you felt something else. Can you tell us what that was?
Yes. It was a Saturday, June 1st, I think, in 2020. I was in Minneapolis. I'd been covering the killing of George Floyd. I'd been there for a few days, and it was a Saturday night, and there was a protest, and it was truly, and I mean this, and there are all these memes on social media about it, but I really mean it. It was an entirely peaceful protest. I was walking in this protest beside some like Bernie Sanders supporters, and like people they were just protesting in general and walking down the street. But it was peaceful. They were singing. Nothing was going on. There was a curfew in place, and it had come across all of our phones that you were in violation of a curfew. If you were not indoors, go inside, you'll be arrested. And the crowd basically just kept marching through Minneapolis. Now, I've covered these protests, G20s, G8s, for decades, and generally speaking, police know how these things work. Don't antagonize the crowd. They'll peter out. Everything will be fine. But for whatever reason, in Minneapolis that night, into the intersection in front of me, lights and sirens blaring, came the Minneapolis State Police, the National Guard, and the Minneapolis Police, and they started shooting rubber bullets, tear gas, and flashbangs into the crowd. Now, most humans can't take tear gas, right? We carry masks. Although that was the absolute first time in America that I deployed with a tear gas mask and a bulletproof vest. It was I had a vest for other work I had done. I didn't own a tear gas mask. Now I have a couple. So when they deploy tear gas, most people disappear. There's a small percentage of people who can handle tear gas. So believe it or not, they can take it. Some people carry milk with them and just pour it into their eyes, and they can manage it. But essentially, the crowd between me and the police had now disappeared. But you could see us. We were media. It was very clear. And generally speaking, if you're going to shoot at someone, you should be looking through a scope. And I'm on TV, and I'm live. And our head of security there, who was very recently retired from the New York Police Department, was incredulous. He's heard on the tape. You can hear it. He's saying, they're shooting at us. And he's pulling me. You can see his hand. He's pulling me backward. And at that moment, my wife and my mother both texted me to say this looks a little more dodgy than it seems. But basically, Lori was asking me to convince her that it wasn't, because she knows, like, for hurricanes and stuff like that, we set up the shot to look very, very serious. So she was trying to convince me, she basically wanted some assurance that that wasn't the case. And I see both of these texts, and I'm a little annoyed. It's like, guys, I'm trying to deal with something here. I can't really text you right now. Boom. I take a rubber bullet to the shin. And I'm live on TV when this happens. So we're on TV, we're doing this, we're retreating, we get to another intersection, we're walking backwards, and the same thing happens. More police and more National Guard and more state police move in. Now we, like, hands up to everybody. It's like, we're media. And someone in that group yelled, "We don't care," and opened fire again. Now, nobody got hit the second time, thankfully. And let me tell you, as I describe in the book, a rubber bullet is a rubber-coated bullet. It's not a Nerf. It's an actual rubber-coated bullet. It's meant to bounce and then hit you, so the velocity is a little less. This one hit me. It went right to me. So there's a lot of questions about how it is that they fired at a group of journalists, but subsequently, discovery and some legal matters have indicated that the police knew and were fairly determined to hunt down journalists that night. But I realized in that moment that expression people use, a lot of people say to me, "What an exciting job. You have a front row to everything that goes on in history." And I realized this is not the front row. This is the arena. We're in it. And all of a sudden, this chain in my history made sense. It became this idea that we all have some battle to fight. We as journalists are okay with the idea that we don't like when hurricanes destroy people's homes, and we don't like when people murder other people, but we don't like when these things happen, when there's injustice in society, when the elements that we think are basic to democracy are taken away. And it was in that moment that I realized I have more of a job to do. While my job as a journalist is to bear witness and to hold power to account, both of which I was doing that night, and by the way, the next morning was very successful holding power to account because I had just been hit by the police the night before. So now I've got the governor and the attorney general and everybody else on the TV who wants to make sure that they understand that they weren't targeting me. But that's the story, that all of a sudden you realize you're in it. And to just go farther than that, Roxanne, I am not a black male civilian in the United States who has a very remarkably high chance of dying at the hands of police, right? I did not grow up with my rights being curtailed. I'm not a woman in this country who, by definition, has fewer freedoms than I do in most states in this country now. The majority of states in this country, a woman enjoys fewer freedoms than I do. And by the way, there is a very strong chance that that may apply to everybody in this country very soon. So then my democracy is not complete, right? And I go back to South Africa. 6% of the population in South Africa had the vote. Their democracy was fantastic. If you were white in South Africa, your democracy worked perfectly. You voted every 4 years. You got to pick your prime minister. You got to discuss, debate, and choose between two candidates. But nobody else had that right. And what I understood in 2020 is that until we all enjoy the same rights, until we are all actually equal, none of us are equal.